Operation Barbarossa captured the huge numbers of Russian prisoners. What did they do with them?
Embark on a journey to the aftermath of World War II, where something truly remarkable took place on the streets of Moscow. 57,000 German prisoners who were once mighty now became part of a solemn parade of the defeated. Known as the Parade of the Vanquished, this extraordinary event symbolizes the profound impact of war and the humility it can bring. Get ready to delve into a story that showcases both triumph, defeat, and humbling aftermath. In the scorching summer of 1944, a brilliant storm brewed in the heart of the German villains' occupied lands. It wasn't just any ordinary operation, it was the Soviet Union's masterpiece, Operation Bagration. While the whole world was buzzing about D-Day, only a few knew about this game-changing mission that reshaped history. Imagine a fearless Red Army, stealthily pouncing on unsuspecting German invaders like a cunning panther in the night. The Soviets were experts in trickery, hiding their plans under the cloak of maskirovka. On June 19th, partisan units ambushed German supply lines from the shadows. A few days later, the skies erupted with massive air assaults, and on the 23rd, under the shroud of darkness, the Red Army surged forward, catching the Germans completely off guard. Hitler's monumental blunder added fuel to the fire. He ordered his troops to hold on stubbornly to their feste Plätze, believing these fortifications were impenetrable strongholds. But oh, how wrong he was. The Soviets swiftly dashed past, leaving isolated enemies trembling in fear. The German generals begged for flexibility, but Hitler's firm grip proved fatal. Operation Bagration stormed through the heart of the Army Group Center like a tempest, crushing the 4th Army and parts of the 3rd Panzer and 9th Armies. The Germans faced a catastrophe, reminiscent of their darkest days in the past. Over 500,000 men were lost, surpassing even the infamous carnage of Verdun. Yet amidst this chaos, the Soviets emerged triumphant, liberating vast stretches of their homeland and claiming territories in Romania and Poland. Their victory was unparalleled, a thunderous roar of resilience and power. Cities lay in ruins and villages mourned their lost souls, but hope blazed like wildfire. The sight of 57,000 defeated German prisoners marching through Moscow, an event that is penned down in history as the Parade of the Vanquished. It showcased the magnitude of the Soviet conquest. It was a symbol of the Eastern Storm, relentless and unforgiving. Hitler's once vaunted Reich crumbled like a fragile house of cards, and the dream of a 1,000-year rule vanished with the winds of defeat. This spectacular Parade of the Vanquished left an indelible mark on history, etching the memory of the Soviet triumph in the minds of all who witnessed it. In just 90 minutes, the procession of prisoners marched quickly and 20 abreast, a stunning visual testament to the scale of their victory. The aftermath of a world at war, where whispers in the shadows suggest that the idea for a breathtaking parade was born from the mind of none other than the legendary Joseph Stalin himself. But hold on, dear listeners, because there's more to this enthralling story than meets the eye. Some daring souls propose that the true mastermind behind the mesmerizing spectacle was none other than the cunning NKVD chief, Lavrenti Beria. Oh yes, he had his finger on the pulse of Stalin's preferences, and like a maestro conducting a magnificent symphony, he might have orchestrated the perfect melody to please the USSR's great leader. A waltz, they say, inspired by the very route of the parade, a circular dance along Moscow's famed Garden Ring, completing a full circle as if in a dance with destiny. Now, you might wonder, why stage such an audacious parade with German prisoners of war? Ah, my friends, the answer lies in the cunning strategy of showcasing the Red Army's unrivaled achievements in the heart of Belarus. With a cunning move, most of the formidable Wehrmacht's forces had been drawn to the Eastern Front, leaving the stage set for the Soviet offensive operation to shine in all its glory. The parade was no ordinary spectacle. It was a breathtaking showcase of the Soviets' triumphant march toward victory. But hush now, for we're about to tread into the realm of secrets and shadows. The entire operation was cloaked in mystery, hidden from prying eyes like a magician's greatest trick. Can you believe it? Neither the brave military escorts nor the unsuspecting POWs themselves knew a thing about this grand spectacle that was about to unfold. The streets of Moscow were about to witness a show like no other, and not even its own residents had the slightest inkling of what was to come. Oh, the intrigue thickens as we delve into the mysteries of classified documents locked away from the world's gaze. Shrouded in secrecy, only a handful of papers have emerged like a rare gem, offering us a glimpse into this extraordinary affair. A dated note, penned by the enigmatic Lavrenti Beria, informing the State Defense Committee of the POW's journey along the Moscow streets on that fateful day of July 17, 1944. Back in the autumn of 1941, Germany's leaders boldly proclaimed a victory parade in Moscow's Red Square once they conquered the city. Their ambitions were high, envisioning Adolf Hitler himself inspecting the triumphant procession. However, destiny had a twist in store for them. Fast forward 2.5 years, on a fateful day, a parade did indeed take place in Moscow, but it wasn't the celebration they had envisioned. Dubbed the Defeat Parade by the resilient people of the USSR, this unexpected spectacle painted an entirely different picture. On July 17, 1944, over 120,000 Soviet onlookers from Moscow and across the country gathered to witness an unprecedented sight. German soldiers and officers, draped in dust-covered uniforms, marched through the heart of Moscow. A stark contrast to their intended victory parade, this display was a symbol of their failure. The march consisted of 57,640 German troops, including generals and soldiers, a far cry from the grandiose number they might have imagined. While this event was far from their original plan, it had come true, thanks to the meticulous arrangements made. It all began on July 14th, when German prisoners arrived in Moscow. The Dynamo Stadium and Moscow Hippodrome were their accommodations. As they prepared to set forth, 18 trainloads of POWs were assigned to march along specific routes through the city. The remaining 8 trainloads followed different paths, covering various parts of Moscow. Leading this extraordinary convoy was Colonel General Pavel Artemyev, commanding the Moscow Military District. Ensuring the safety and order of this peculiar event were Major General Kuzma Sinilov, in charge of public order and transport security, and Commissar Second Rank Viktor Romanchenko, the esteemed Moscow police chief. The Pravda daily newspaper's back page carried the announcement of this historic march, catching the attention of the public. On July 17, 1944, they were informed that a convoy of 57,600 German POWs would make its way through the heart of Moscow en route to the designated camps. Along with this notification came specific details of the routes, and the residents and visitors were politely forewarned about restricted traffic and accessibility in those areas. In a spirit of camaraderie and empathy, all Soviet citizens were advised to show respect for the POWs and refrain from causing them any discomfort during the march. Marching in perfect formation, 600 German prisoners, 20 abreast, stepped forward onto the vast grounds of the Moscow Hippodrome. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over their journey. This was no ordinary procession. It was a captivating display of power and defeat, an event etched in history with 1227 highest-ranking officers at the helm. As the parade commenced, the leaders of this solemn march emerged, adorned in their uniforms, the emblems of their former glory shimmering under the sunlight. 19 generals and 6 colonels took the lead, a reminder of the once mighty force that had tried to conquer the lands beyond their reach. Each step they took resonated with the weight of their responsibilities and the consequences of their actions. Among these illustrious figures were names etched into the annals of warfare. General of the Infantry, Paul Gustav Volkers, with his imposing presence, had commanded the 67th Army Corps with tactical brilliance. Fate, however, had its own plans, and he met his end in Soviet captivity, an echo of the war's brutal consequences. His counterpart, General Friedrich Gollwitzer, once an esteemed leader of the 3rd Army Corps, faced a different destiny. Convicted as a war criminal, he experienced the heavy burden of guilt only to be released years later with the hope of redemption in 1955. Beside them stood Colonel Vinzenz Müller, who led the 14th Army Corps with unwavering dedication. His life, colored by complexities, saw him become an anti-German villain advocate. Trapped within the clutches of history, many whispered that his end was self-inflicted, a tragic note in the symphony of his existence. And who could forget Major General Gottfried von Erdmannsdorf, once a formidable commandant of Mogilev? His story intertwined with the unfolding drama of these turbulent times. But amid the array of stories, two names stood out, tainted by the shadow of atrocity. Two generals, later to face public execution for their war crimes, served as a haunting reminder of the darkest depths humanity could descend into during wartime. The parade of men in uniforms and medals, while awe-inspiring, also carried with it the scars of battles fought and lives lost. In the heart of Moscow, an awe-inspiring spectacle unfolded as the defeated oppressors of Europe paraded through the streets. Led by their generals, whose dark deeds had stained the occupied lands with blood and suffering, they now faced the wrathful gaze of Moscow's residents. A somber atmosphere enveloped the city as these German villain overlords, who once reveled in their cruelty, marched with trepidation under the watchful eyes of those they once sought to dominate. In the vanguard of the procession were the generals, not the battle-hardened soldiers, for the lifespan of a German general far exceeded that of the common foot soldier. Some of these generals might have even participated in the triumphal German villains' victory parades in conquered European cities, but now their faces were etched with defeat. Their once haughty demeanor was now replaced with unease as they were required to confront the consequences of their actions. Among them, Lieutenant General Adolf Hamann, known as the Commandant and Butcher of Bobruisk, exhibited an air of guilt and shame, refusing to meet the accusing gazes of the people. Next to him walked Major General Gottfried von Erdmannsdorf, his body language betraying a sense of embarrassment and an attempt to hide from the scornful onlookers. The crowd couldn't hold back their emotions and express their outrage, showering the marchers with curses and jeers. The presence of Major General Herbert Michaelis only added to the sense of repulsion. With his short, corpulent frame and face flushed with arrogance, he embodied cruelty even toward his own soldiers. Yet his malevolent smile evoked more fear and contempt than the open hatred in the eyes of the lean lieutenant general beside him, who resembled a trapped weasel, desperate and cornered. Trailing behind the generals were hundreds of officers, once polished and authoritative, now reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. Covered in dirt, unshaven and unwashed, they appeared more like destitute vagabonds than disciplined military officers. Their uniforms, insignia, and decorations held no sway over the masses who knew the truth of their atrocities. The soldiers, too, bore the scars of war. Stripped of their humanity through the horrors of battle and the relentless Soviet offensive in Belarus, they were mere shells of men. Fear and despair were imprinted on their faces, making them unrecognizable as members of the previously great and cruel German army. As the defeated oppressors passed through the streets of Moscow, they were enveloped in an atmosphere of solemnity and judgment. The city's residents, having witnessed the horrors of war, stood as witnesses to the triumph of good over evil. Their silent, intense gaze communicated a powerful message. Those who perpetrate injustice and suffering shall ultimately face their reckoning. Boris Polovoy's eyewitness account for the Pravda Daily captures the heart of this historic event. Through his powerful and amazing depictions, he presented an image of defeated oppressors who were scared and dealing with the consequences of the crimes that they had committed in the past. His statements were not optimistic, but rather a call to introspection and an agreement to ensure that such tragic events would never happen again. The number of guards was kept deliberately low, giving an illusion of the Germans' cowardice in the face of the brave Red Army soldiers. But behind this facade lay a hidden force, an intimidating shadow of 12,000 NKVD officers and tens of thousands of heavily armed troops, ensuring compliance and preventing any interference. As the parade marched forth, the streets echoed with the silence of the Muscovites, who stood as spectators to this historical drama. Occasional insults penetrated the air, paying tribute to the convicts' strong hatred. However, any attempts to harm or harass the captives were promptly quashed by the vigilant guards, maintaining order and control. Germans, on the other hand, could only show their feelings through tough faces. Some wore expressions of dislike and loathing, indicative of the loss and suffering they had endured. For them, the parade march was a walk of shame, and their imprisonment was a vivid reminder of the consequences of oppression and violence. Following the march, a symbolic celebration took place that showed the wish to cleanse the city of the German filth that had desecrated its streets. Municipal water trucks trundled through the city, their hoses sweeping away the invading army's physical and literal stains. It was a moment of catharsis for the nation, a cleansing of the wounds inflicted on the motherland. As the prisoners were shuttled away in train wagons to remote labor camps, many of which were in the unforgiving Siberian expanse, their fate was sealed. The dark chapters of maltreatment and disease awaited them, claiming the lives of countless unfortunate souls. Their plight was a testament to the human cost of conflict, a reminder of the vulnerability of life in the face of a cruel and merciless system. Beria's reports painted a picture of efficient control, claiming that the POWs were promptly boarded onto trains destined for detention camps. By nightfall on July 17, 1944, 25 fully loaded trains set forth on their grim journey to their desolate destinations. The prisoners were condemned to years of labor, and their dreams of liberation were shattered. The saga did not end on that somber day. Instead, it etched itself into the annals of history. The survivors endured years of torment and uncertainty until the mid-1950 ES, when a glimmer of hope allowed them to return to the remnants of their shattered lives. This haunting spectacle in Moscow's heart showcased the resilience of the human spirit and the will to overcome adversity. It was a display of power and control as the mighty Red Army stood tall against its conquered foes. But it was also a stark reminder of the depths of human cruelty and suffering, cautioning future generations against the horrors of war. The Parade of the Vanquished remains a subject of interest and discussion among historians. This carefully orchestrated event served as a potent propaganda tool for the Soviet government, designed to bolster morale, foster national unity, and demonstrate the Red Army's strength and victory over the German invaders during World War II. According to historians, the parade held significant symbolism and emotional impact. The parade was widely regarded as a meticulously orchestrated propaganda event by the Soviet government. It served as a powerful demonstration of the Red Army's strength and victory over the German invaders during World War II. The display of defeated Germans to the Muscovite crowds was a strategic move by the Soviet authorities to bolster morale, foster national unity, and reinforce the notion of a formidable and triumphant Soviet state. The emotional impact of the parade on both participants and spectators remains a key focus for historians. It was cleverly made to instill sentiments of pride, patriotism, and justice among the Soviet people. By showcasing the Germans as a vanquished and humbled foe, while highlighting the fortitude and determination of the Soviet forces, the parade aimed to strengthen the sense of national identity and collective purpose. Despite the parade's propaganda intentions, some historians raise ethical questions concerning the treatment of the German prisoners during the event and their subsequent imprisonment in labor camps. The conditions in these camps were often harsh, subjecting many prisoners to extreme hardship, suffering, and even passing away. The parade itself could be interpreted as a means of publicly humiliating and dehumanizing the prisoners, further exacerbating the ethical concerns surrounding the treatment of captives. In the heart of Moscow, the defeated generals and their entourage were met with the collective memory of suffering and the resolute spirit of a people who refused to be crushed. The march was not a victory celebration. Instead, it was a sobering reminder of the expense of freedom. It was a form of healing for the citizens of Moscow, who had suffered immense pain and loss during the war.